Apologies for last week's unexpected cancellation, but here we are, so it's all good. So session 7 is dedicated to the 6th limb of yoga, which is the limb of concentration. It's the limb of drawing inward to explore what is happening in our mind so that we can begin to recognize our patterns, our physical patterns, our emotional patterns, our mental patterns, our verbal patterns, our relational patterns. It's all about noticing our habits through concentrating on what's happening in the mind and in our emotions. And for the last 2 sessions, we explored the things that create fluctuations in our mind. We explored our emotional sort of predilections. We talked about attachment or clinging, craving, aversion, fear, ego, a couple of sessions ago. And then last session, we talked about the vrittis, the mental fluctuations of misperceiving things, creating narratives and stories in our mind, getting caught up in remembrance or in planning. And all of those things manifest when you begin to concentrate on it, various fluctuations in our mind. And the yogis called this an observation or concentration on our mind states. And they outlined 5 different states of mind that are really sort of the manifestation of those emotional predilections and those mental fluctuations that we began to explore in the last 2 sessions. And today we'll explore them less from the perspective of less from the perspective of what's the content. Am I craving, clinging to ego? Am I planning, remembering? And more from the perspective of process, of what is happening in my mind. How is my mind dealing with all of this stuff that can get stirred up in my practice and in my day-to-day life? And so we will explore these 5 mind states, all from the perspective of ultimately transforming them toward the latter 2 mind states, which are much calmer and more lucid. So the first mind state that the yogis write about has started to get the label monkey mind. And I really like sort of that idea of calling it monkey mind. Other translations are disturbed mind or chaotic mind, restless mind. It's sort of the mind that jumps around like a little monkey in a tree without much direction or purpose, jumping from topic to topic, from thought to thought, from emotion to emotion, from habit to habit, from pattern to pattern. It's sort of your chaotic, maybe slightly manic, maybe slightly out of control, maybe slightly anxious or even panicky mind. The second mind state that the yogis describe has started to get the label cow mind. Sometimes I've heard it called donkey mind. And it's that more sluggish mind state when you can't think. You don't even want to feel. You're just sort of overwhelmed. You're tired. You're lethargic, dull, maybe forgetful, maybe sleepy, maybe even a little teary. You're just sort of dragged down. You might be ruminating, right? Hence the cow mind label for that particular mind state. But the overall feel of it is just sort of sluggish. The third state of mind that the yogis describe is called distracted mind, or the animal that's been used to describe it is butterfly mind. So there is movement in the mind. And when I say mind, remember, it's always thoughts, emotions, plans. It's the whole gamut of things. But there's sort of a direction to it. If you think about a butterfly, how it kind of goes from flower to collect pollen here and there, it's a little bit distractible in the sense that if there's a prettier flower, it moves on to the next flower or the next blossom. But there is a direction to it in the sense that it's still about collecting pollen. And so it's kind of how we tend to live our life a lot. Is sort of with a direction, but easily distracted by other stimuli that maybe seem a little more interesting or more colorful than what we're actually engaged in. Whenever we multitask, we really are in distracted mind. We're in butterfly mind. The fourth mind state that the yogis describe is called single-pointed. This is where you're actually in the flow. You're clear about what it is that you're concentrated on. You have a direction, you have a purpose. You're there, you're with it, right? My animal that I associate with this, and this is just my construction, is a bear hunting. I lived in Alaska for almost a quarter of a century, and we used to spend a lot of time in the backcountry. And when you find a bear hunting, that is concentrated mind, no matter what happens around that animal. And I'm sure they're vigilant and aware, but they are fully concentrated on trying to snap that salmon in their jaw, right? So that's concentrated mind. When you're in the flow, maybe you're playing a piece of music, or you're writing a book, or you're running a marathon and you're like fully in it. That's single-pointed mind. The fifth mind state, and you could hardly feel like it could get any better than single-pointed, right? But the fifth state of mind that the yogis describe is called lucid mind. And that's the mind where there is stillness in movement and movement in stillness. That's my favorite way of describing it. It's like a mountain lake. A mountain lake is still, but there has to be movement for the water to stay clear and luminous. Or if a mountain lake is being moved by wind, there's still a clarity, a stillness to the water that stays there. So lucid mind is like that. It's not dull and sluggish like cow mind, but it's still with that sort of sense of vitality, right? And when it is moving in a very gentle, still, clear, lucid way. So lucid mind's pretty elusive. It's a pretty rare event. So when you do tap into lucid mind, maybe you really feel a sense of gratitude or joy. It really might sort of move you into this very beautiful place of almost enlightenment or awakening. And so it's a tough one to get to, but when you begin to recognize when it happens, it's quite amazing. So today we will work a lot on just noticing where you are in terms of your state of mind. Are you like a little monkey jumping around? Are you more like a cow, kind of sluggish and not quite into it? Are you maybe a little distracted? Or can you actually find focus? Can you find that single-pointed concentration? So as we go through our practice today, that's your task, and I'll keep reminding you to sort of explore what's happening in my mind state. From here, we'll move into a breathing practice. So I invite you to find a comfortable seat, or you could be on your back. It's totally up to you, whatever sort of feels appropriate for you at this time of day and in the state of your body currently. So take a moment to settle yourself in. If you do lie on your back, make sure that your forehead is a little bit higher than your chin so that you can move into a parasympathetic state. If you hyperextend your throat, it's hard to really relax and find a gentleness in the breath. And also, if you are on your back, you might consider a little lift under the knees just to take any strain out of the low back if you're prone to low back issues, or even just to create a little bit more comfort for your body. And then wherever you are, whether in a seat or in a supine position, I invite you to make a choice about whether it feels auspicious for you to close your eyes or if you'd like to keep them at half mast. Maybe finding a gentle gaze point where you can rest your concentration. As you begin to turn your attention inwards, finding your body in this moment, noticing perhaps where it makes contact with the earth, how it is settling itself on the ground. At this point, it might be possible for you simply to invite your body to release itself into this moment and to find a sense of comfort, a sense of rooting or grounding. Your body may have muscle memory now how to do this. And so issue that invitation, and then if you'd like, you can gently scan your body. Maybe from the inside out, or from top to bottom, or bottom to top. Whatever feels most accessible to you. To find any spots of unease or tension. So that you can issue an invitation for those parts of your physical being to release if possible. Or to send your breath to those parts of you so that the breath can create a sense of gentleness, a sense of ease. Take another moment or two to notice your body, to settle your body. To invite your body into this moment. And then gently draw your attention to the breath. Begin by simply observing how the breath is traveling in and out of your body in this moment. Perhaps noticing the inhalation as a cool breeze entering through your nostrils. And the exhalation as warm air leaving your body through the nose. Or maybe you're sensing the breath as air traveling into the throat and out through the throat. Or perhaps you feel the breath in the body as a gentle rising and falling of the belly. As your diaphragm moves to create space in the lungs, a vacuum in the lungs that draws in the in-breath. And then as the diaphragm moves back toward the lungs, creating the impetus to breathe out. Or maybe you notice the breath as movement in the rib cage. Rib basket expanding as you breathe in. Rib basket drawing in as you breathe out. As you attend to the breath in this very concentrated way, you notice the inhalation and you notice the exhalation. You might also notice that there is a brief pause at the top of the breath, that point where the inhalation ends, and yet the exhalation has not yet quite begun. You might also notice a pause at the bottom of the breath, at the end of the exhalation, before the inhalation begins to flow in. And so as you attend in a very concentrated way to the breath, you begin to become familiar with the reality that the breath actually has 4 parts: an inhalation, a pause, an exhalation, another pause. As you continue to breathe, continue to pay attention to all 4 parts of your breath. Staying fully concentrated on the part of the breath that's currently unfolding. If you're inhaling, be fully concentrated on the inhalation. When you're pausing at the top of the breath, be fully present with that pause, however short it might be. When you're exhaling, be fully concentrated on breath flowing out. And at the bottom of the breath, be fully attuned to the pause, that moment of stillness. And then when the next inhalation comes, be with the inhalation. And so the cycle goes. And perhaps as you attend to the breath, to the 4 parts in this concentrated way, the pauses at the top and the bottom might get a tiny bit longer. You don't have to create that length in those pauses, just notice if it happens. And if you're tempted to extend that pause, that's fine. Be mindful of how you do it so that you're not creating a gasping inhalation by holding out the breath for too long at the bottom, or a choppy exhalation by holding out the breath too long at the top. If your mind wants to jump away from where you are in your breath cycle, gently guide it back. If you're inhaling, guide your attention back to the inhalation. If you're pausing, come back to the pause. Perhaps as you attend, as you concentrate on the breath this way, you can connect to the reality that our breath in and of itself is luminous. Our breath is radiant. It is very still in the midst of the movement of air moving in and out. And it is moving no matter how still it is. Take 2 to 4 more cycles of concentrated breath. And then if you've chosen a supine position, if you're lying on your back, gently begin your journey toward a seat. And once you're in the seat, make a conscious choice about your hand position. Maybe the palms are facing down on your thighs. Maybe your palms are facing up, inviting inspiration. Maybe your palms come to the center of your chest, acknowledging your heart. Or maybe your palms come together in front of your heart. And then I invite you, if it feels auspicious for you, to bow your head to your heart, to bow to your inner stillness, to your inner capacity to concentrate, to find stillness in movement and movement in stillness. And from there, you might invite an intention for your time on the mat today. If an intention arises for you that seems auspicious, perhaps breathe it into your heart with an inhalation and breathe it into your world with an exhalation. And then gently release your hands, open your eyes if they were closed, and lift your focus. All right, from here, you might want to bring your 2 blocks to the top of your mat. And we will come into a lunge position. So however you want to transition, maybe standing up for a moment, if you need to shake out or roll out your ankles, this is a good time to do that. And then we'll start with the right foot forward by the inside of your right block, and the left foot will step back so that you come into a nice long lunge. And as you settle in this lunge, be fully present with what's happening in your body. So really be present with this lunge. Let your mind be single pointed about how you're assembling your body. Maybe encouraging your forward thigh bone to draw back into its hip socket and the back thigh bone to draw forward into its hip socket so that you're squaring off the hips, creating a beautiful sense of stability as you're in your lunge here. Your weight in the hands is up to you. You can be on your fingertips with minimal weight in the hands. You could be on your forearms, on your blocks, or maybe there's a little more weight in the hands, whatever feels appropriate to you. And then from here, we'll begin with some gentle movements to open the legs, the hips just a little bit. So as you inhale, you'll straighten or move towards straight. the forward knee toward a pyramid pose. Now we're warming up, so that knee might not be straight at all, right? But just see what's possible in terms of range of motion. And then as you exhale, you'll come back to your lunge and then move with your own breath. Transitioning from the lunge, inhaling to pyramid, exhaling to a lunge, again with your own breath, and without expectation about how straight you get that forward leg. Maybe there's still quite a bend in that leg, that's totally okay. Maybe also notice what's possible in the back heel. Is the heel closer to the floor, or does the heel float? Maybe notice how the position of the heel changes relative to the earth as you're moving forward and back. So in other words, be really, really concentrated on the movement. And if you find your mind is jumping away like a little monkey, or moving here and there like a butterfly, invite it to come back, invite it to be fully present for this flow. Or if your mind's a little dull and not so interested, see if you can awaken it to have an interest in what's happening in the legs here, in the muscles. What's the sensation in the back of the thigh of the forward leg? Find something that the mind can be interested in. And then the next time you come forward into your lunge, stay there. And use a breath to step the right foot back to meet the left so that you're in a plank pose on your blocks. It's just a transition, and you can always be on your knees if that's more auspicious for you today. And then with a breath, step the left foot forward. So you've essentially just changed sides in your lunge, and we'll repeat the same sequence to the other side now. So you're again floating with the breath. As you inhale, straightening that forward knee, and as you exhale, coming forward. Or you can do the opposite. You can exhale as you straighten and inhale as you move forward. As long as you find a rhythm. As long as you create a dance with breath and movement being coordinated, concentrated. And then invite yourself to notice your mind state. And if you find a little monkey, maybe even just moving towards a distracted mind state is already a step, right? Or if you find distraction, maybe you can become curious and concentrated on the sensations in your legs, your heels, as you're moving back and forth with the breath. The next time you come into your lunge, step the left foot back to meet the right for just a moment, and then with another breath, step the right foot forward to switch sides. From here, instead of straightening the forward knee now, what we're going to do is we're going to dip the back knee toward the ground. Maybe you come all the way down, just a gentle touch, maybe not. And then you straighten, and you dip, and you straighten. Dip, and straighten. Very nice. We'll do this a couple more times. And then switch sides, step the right foot back, left foot forward. This time we'll do a quick change, and then take the same dips on this side. You could play with this and see if you can basically have the bulk of the movement, like 90% of it, in that back leg. So that there's not a lot of movement in the chest, in the hips. You're moving just the leg. And then concentrate on where the sensation is happening here. Let the mind be curious about the movement. One more dip. And then we'll switch sides yet again. Step back, step forward. And this time, what we'll do is as we dip, we inhale and come into a lungy cow position, a tiny bit of back bend. And as we exhale, we come into that pyramid shape, into a cat arch. So we're creating a cat-cow movement in our lunge sequence here. Inhaling into cow and exhaling into cat. Let yourself be fully present for this movement. When you're in cow, really be in cow. When you're in cat, really be in cat. Try not to jump ahead to the next branch or the next flower. And then the next time you've been in cat, when you come forward, switch sides. Step the forward leg back, back leg forward, and do that same sequence on the other side. Dipping, inhaling into cow, rising into pyramid and cat. Finding stillness in this movement. Inviting the mind to be present with this flow. And then after your next cat, you will switch sides yet again. Go ahead and drop the back knee to the floor. And then you can continue to keep some weight, could be minimal, in the left hand on the left block. But the right hand will become unweighted. And for me, I usually like to move my block back a little bit so that my arm is by my side, so that we can come into a side bend here in the lunge. Just open your right side a little bit, and you could play with this a little bit. I'll show this way. So that you can bring the right hip really out to the side, and maybe you come back for a moment and move again. Notice how you want to move through this little flow. Just opening the right side body, really concentrating on that stretch from the top of the hips all the way into the armpit. One more stretch to the left, and then the next time you rise up, you can stay on the knee and switch sides that way. So that now the left foot comes forward. Now the block is on your right side, the right hand is resting on the block. The left arm reaches up and over as you gently side bend to the right, opening the left side body now. Concentrating on the stretch from the left hip into the left armpit. And then deciding if you want to add a little bit of flow here, if you want to hold, however you want to access this very gentle stretch. If you're moving, can you find stillness in the movement? And if you're holding the stretch, can you notice the movement in the stillness? At the end of your next breath cycle, come back to center and switch sides one more time. Right foot forward, left foot is back. As we come into a gentle twist here. And so what we'll do, you have options. You could come into the twist like this, right arm touching the inside of the right leg, and the left arm stretches out behind you. If you want to play a little bit more, you might reach the left foot up and catch it with your hand. Or you could catch it with a strap. It's up to you. The concentration is really on the gentle twist to the left. If you are holding this twist, find movement in the holding. Or maybe you are actually creating movement in the twist by dipping into the forward leg and then stretching back. And if you create this kind of movement, then can you find stillness? Take 2 more rounds of breath. And then release and switch sides. Left foot forward. And then make a new decision on this side. Don't just assume from the other side how you want to move into the twist. You can open the right arm out behind you. This is your version. Or you can lift that right foot up, catch it with the right hand. You can also change midstream, right? You don't have to commit and then feel like you're taken hostage there. Gently twisting your torso. Letting that opposite hip move into the twist. So not feeling this push toward parallel hips here at all. The natural body movement allows the opposite hip to move into the twist. Take 1 more full breath. And then very gently release out of the twist. Come back and sit on your heels for a moment while I turn on some lights here. And then from being seated on your heels, swing your hips to one side and bring your legs out in front of you. This is a place where it might be auspicious for you to have a blanket or a wedge under your sits bones to create a little bit of anterior tilt in your pelvis so that you're not rounding in the back, but you have a nice neutral spine. For most people, this means having a little bit of a lift. You don't want too much, but just give yourself the permission to be lifted on something. And then from here, have a strap handy just in case you'll want it. As you're seated here in staff pose, you might concentrate on sensation in your legs. And you can create a little bit of interest here in case your mind state is a little bit dull by maybe flexing dorsiflexing and plantar flexing the ankles. So drawing the toes toward you and pressing the toes away, just to see how this might change the sensation in the backs of your legs. As you're seated here in a basic forward fold shape. And then find your preferred position for your feet. Maybe you're drawing the toes up. That's kind of where my body wants to be right now. From here, I invite you to let the arms float up. And just notice what this does to the curve in your low back and make adjustments to stay nice and neutral in the low back, so not to slump, but to stay erect in the spine. And then notice as you're lifting your arms here, what is happening to your shoulder blades. So place some concentration, some attention into the back body. And notice if your arms shrugged up toward the ears, or if you planted your scapulae down the back. Not about something right or wrong, it's just about noticing. In forward folds, if we're not weight bearing, having the shoulder blades shrug up is no big tragedy, but if we use a forward fold to come to an inversion, then we kind of want to have that awareness of, do I know how to settle my shoulder blades onto the back? And so just notice this. Bringing your arms out to the side. Hold them there and just notice how this affected the alignment in your back. Bring them up again. And notice any change in the shoulder girdle. Just creating some concentration on the body parts that tend to move here when we work in forward folds. We'll do that one more time. Arms down to the side and back up. And then the next time, release your arms all the way down and grab a strap or a towel or whatever you have available and catch the balls of your feet. If your legs can come together at the inseams, go ahead and let them come together. And then use your straps to give yourself a little bit of tension between the hands and the feet. And you might notice that this will actually release any strain you might have had in the low back. It's like you're giving yourself a nice little adjustment here. And so enjoy for a moment this very supported staff pose. And then let this be the starting point for a potentially slightly deeper forward fold. One thing you may have noticed me doing, I was rocking side to side to sort of make better contact between my blanket and my sits bones. So if you notice that maybe the contact of your sits bones with the earth is not auspicious or optimal, you could do the same thing, sort of rock side to side a little bit and really feel yourself grounding. And then from the low belly, so not from the shoulder blades, not from the shoulder, from the low belly, roll forward any amount. So you're rolling the hips over the heads of the femurs to create a little bit more forward fold. You're not creating a forward fold by rolling the head down, because you're not actually really forward folding, you're forward rolling, but folding at the hip joint. And that may not be a huge range of motion, right? Not much may happen on the outside at all, but a lot may happen on the inside. And so just notice. Sometimes it helps to breathe in and then breathe out, and on that pause at the bottom of the breath, move forward and just see if that creates more space for forward fold. And play with this for a while, really concentrating on what's possible. Where can I fold here and keep my open heart? Where can I fold and still have my chest wide, my spine relatively neutral? The lower down you come, the more of a curve you're going to get, and there's absolutely no harm in this. You just really want to have that nice anterior tilt in the pelvis as you're rolling perhaps a little bit more deeply into this forward fold. If at some point you can let go of the strap and clasp your toes, you're absolutely welcome to do that. So let your own body determine what's possible. And if your back is happy here and your mind is concentrated and you're not doing it out of ego or craving and you want to fold all the way, you can. At the end range of the forward fold, your mind will curl. It's made to do that, so that's perfectly fine. And so just notice, explore, and make your own wise decision. Make it not out of a mind state of chaos or distraction, but out of a mind state of single pointed focus. With your next inhalation, rise all the way back up, wherever you started. And then go ahead and bring your right knee up, hug it in. Keep the left leg stretched out, and then have a block handy just in case you might want it under the right knee as you bring the bottom of the foot to the inside of the left thigh and the right knee wherever it can land. So there's no requirement for it to reach the floor. And if it's really hovering pretty far up a block, it might be really nice if it's close to the floor but not quite there. Maybe a blanket or a shirt might be nice under that knee. I can show this way so that you can see. So the bottom line though being that you'd like for this knee to be somewhat supported. And then notice if you still have a nice neutral spine. And then from there, we'll yet again inhale the arms up. And then this time, as you exhale, you'll take that same twist that we took in the lunge earlier, bringing the right hand toward the outside of the left leg, wherever it lands. Doesn't matter where that is. So you're in a forward fold at your hips, but you're also in a twist in your upper torso. With an out breath, slide that right hand down the left leg any amount to bring yourself deeper into the forward fold. Slowly coming out of the twist and letting the twist transform into a fold. Moving yourself toward the top of your left knee. Again, at the end, if you want to round in the back to come into a deeper forward fold over that knee, you're absolutely welcome to, but there's no requirement. You can be almost fully upright here and get a beautiful, beautiful stretch across the entire back body from the bottom of your left foot all the way to the top of your skull. Notice if your mind wants to jump around, jump away, or tune out, and invite it to be concentrated. Concentrated on this beautiful stretch. And then with an inhalation, very gently, very patiently, very concentratedly, slide yourself back up. Stretch out to the right leg, reestablish your seat. And then slide your left foot in, bending the left knee. Turn the leg out, bringing the bottom of the foot to the inside of the right thigh, and then making a new decision on this side, whether you need a prop under that knee. Our two sides are hardly ever alike. And so honor what you find here, right? Settle yourself in to that particular shape. And then when you feel ready with an in breath, breathe your arms up and overhead, and with an out breath, twist around, letting the left hip come forward, finding a beautiful twist in the upper body as you're folded at the hip joints. And then as you breathe out, slide yourself down toward a forward fold, your choice of how upright or far down you go. Absolutely up to you. But you have to make a concentrated choice here. Don't move out of distraction or chaos, or because you've tuned out and you're just copying what you might see from someone on the screen. But concentrate on your sensations and let those guide you to a lucid, a single pointed, a focused way of being in head of knee pose. Choosing your posture, choosing your range of motion. And then with your next inhalation, gently begin the journey back up. Stretch out the left leg and maybe bend the knees and just shake out your legs a little bit. You've been waiting for the shaking, right? Can't believe we're almost an hour into class and it's our first shakeout. So, and then come into wide legs. And then in this wide-legged seat, you can explore again, just like we did earlier, with flexing or pointing the feet, just to see how this changes the sensation in your legs, maybe even in your low back. Does it change where you find neutral? Maybe you need to recalibrate what you're sitting on so that your sits bones feel grounded. And then you can explore what is more auspicious for you here in terms of whether to roll your femurs out or in. For a lot of people, a forward fold is easier when they roll the femurs in. But for some people, it's easier when they roll them out. And so just notice who you are, right? What's your body? And then let yourself come into any forward fold here, keeping a nice neutral spine. And again, not striving, not using distraction or chaos or tuning out to come into the shape, but concentrating on what's the sensation in my back, what's the sensation in my legs, and what does that tell me about where an auspicious place might be for my torso. Not being distracted by what you see on the screen, maybe even closing your eyes, concentrating on your inner experience. And then moving into this forward fold from a place of clarity, a place of knowing what's appropriate for you in this moment. It's the inner experience of our postures. That's the true yoga. It's not the outer shape. And so invite your inner experience to be single pointed, to be luminous, to be still in the midst of movement. And to be vibrant in the midst of stillness. And then with an inhalation, gently walk yourself back out of this fold. Close your legs and remove your little prop from under your seat and come into a squat, just as a transition. Maybe your heels are hovering, maybe your heels are on the floor. Doesn't really matter. And just take a couple of breaths here. And then if you can, ground your hands on the earth in front of you. And then stretch through the legs to come to standing. And then walk the feet out into a wide-legged forward fold. If the floor is really far away here, and for all of us it might be really auspicious, just start with a couple of blocks under our hands so that really we're in a wide-legged half lift. starting with sort of a 90-degree angle at the hips. Unless you're just really enjoying moving more deeply into the forward fold, it's up to you. Let yourself be fully concentrated on the inner experience of this shape. If you find yourself getting distracted, if you find yourself tuning out, invite a focus. And as your body is settling into this shape, if you would like to move closer to the floor, maybe lowering the blocks a setting, you're absolutely welcome to. And then gently place your left hand to the center of the mat in front of you. You might have it on a block, on any setting, right? Low, medium, or even high. If you have it on the high setting, just make sure that you have enough balance. In fact, if you have it on the high, it might be better to stack 2 blocks on top of each other to make sure that there is stability there. And then press into that left hand, stretch the right arm out so that it's parallel to the floor, and then use the pressure of the left hand into the earth to open your heart to the right. So you're not using your right arm and momentum to throw yourself into this twist, but you're using the power of your left arm and the power of your core to roll yourself into this very beautiful forward folded twist. With your next out breath, release down, switch hands, press into the right hand now, make the left arm parallel to the earth, and then use the power of your core, the power of your right arm to open your heart, to bring that forward folded twist to the other side. And notice your mind state. Is chaos creeping in with demand or distraction? Just notice and invite the mind to come back into a concentrated experience of the inner sensation of the shape. And then with an out breath, release down. And once again, ground both hands either into blocks or into the earth. Your choice. If you feel at all dizzy by the long forward folding, you might want to find your half lift. And so just be clear about what it is that's auspicious for your own body. And then from here, walk both hands toward your left foot. You can bring your block with you. There's no weight in your hands. You're just taking a gentle little turn toward the left. Then walk the hands over to the right, bringing your block with you if you're using a block. It actually feels really, really nice. This is a little bit of a twist and a little bit of a side stretch. So really let yourself enjoy this. And then walk back to center. And then from here, you have choices. Well, you always have choices, but from here you have 2 very specific choices. And so if you'd like, you could come out of your forward fold for a moment, give your legs a rest, give yourself a rest, come to standing, and I'll show you where we're headed before we go there. And then you can make a choice of where you will go. So one choice is to stay where you are on your mat and to work toward bringing the head either toward the floor or to a block. I'll show this from the side so that you can see, right? So that you might move toward experimenting with a shape like this, or maybe a shape like this, whatever works for you, okay? And then if you are working here and you're happy here, a blanket under the head actually is really a nice variation. And you're interested, you could bring the legs to your arms, but that's not necessary, right? It's beautiful to explore your forward fold here. So this is one variation that I invite you to play with. The second variation is to take your two chairs and to bring them to a wall, creating an opening about the size of the width of your head. And then you take your forward fold using the chairs like this. This is a really nice way of having your heart open. And so you go ahead and choose which variation you want to take. The one where you're bringing the head to the floor, maybe a blanket, or a variation where you come into your forward fold and you're here. So this is your first step. I will also show you another step, and you can feel free to start experimenting with this, but just watch the next step and then make a decision. The next step is to take your forward fold on the chairs to a place where you actually hang your head. I hope you can see this somewhat on the video, where you hang your head in between that opening of your two chairs. And then you're just like we were on the floor, the head is hanging down, and you can, instead of stepping the legs onto your arms, you can step them onto the chair. And you're in the same pose, but you're on the chair. And if you want to go further, you can actually lift up here. You have no weight on the head, the weight is on your shoulders, and it's a beautiful way of playing with this forward fold. And you come out the way you went in, first resting the legs on your arms, and then bringing them to the floor, and then you can rise up. And we'll rest in child's pose afterwards. So I'll show the floor variation again, and you guys play with what you want to play, using concentration and discernment. So the forward fold version on the floor, I suggest you have a block or a blanket for your head, so you have a nice soft landing, and your legs are wide. And the head reaches toward the block maybe to begin with, just so you have a sense of what works for you. The hands are in between the feet now, so they reach back. They're no longer under the shoulders. They're now under the legs, so that you're making a triangle with your head and your arms. And yeah, if you actually have a headstand practice, a tripod headstand practice, you can go ahead and go there, but there's absolutely no requirement. Once you have the head on the floor or on a blanket and your arms are there, this could be your final shape, right? This is your pose. If you would like a little bit more, maybe you plant the legs on the forearms. If you want to push up from here, and this is a practice you've had, you might play with that variation. Or maybe you play with your forward fold here. You decide. Lots of beautiful variation, really, really lovely. Lots of beautiful discernment about what is and isn't auspicious for you in this moment. Wherever you are, be concentrated on your shape from the inside out. Be aware of what it is that you're doing. Do not let the mind be distracted. Especially if you're fully inverted, you want to be present, you want to be lucid, you want to know where you are in space. And gently begin your journey out of your forward fold. Walking the feet together. If you're in a full inversion, bring the feet back to the earth. Bring them together. Land on your knees. Grab a block. Grab your big cushion or your bolster. Make a little incline. And walk your legs around your cushion or your bolster. You can create more height here if you want more by adding a blanket. And let yourself rest into a nice child's pose. Letting go completely here. You can choose whether you want to close your eyes or just cast your eyelids downward to let your attention move inside. Notice your mind state. Inversions and half inversions have interesting effects on our mind states. Sometimes they create more distraction, sometimes they create lucidity. So just notice. As you invite yourself into a state of vibrant stillness here. A state of letting go physically. A state of letting go energetically. A state of easeful concentration, easeful presence. If you have your head turned to one side, this might be a nice time to switch directions of the head. Let's try and move toward a state of ease. A state of letting go. A state of gentle presence. And then with gentleness, bring your hands under the shoulders and press yourself up. Moving your block or your cushion so that it's across the short edge of your mat. Maybe having your blanket or a small pillow at the top of your mat. And then sit on the bolster or the cushion. And scoop down so that it's your sacrum that's resting on that support as you settle yourself into the earth. Either with a blanket under the head or not, your choice. You're in a gentle, supported bridge pose here. Touch your knees together and walk your feet apart. And let yourself settle. If the bolster is too much height under the sacrum, you can move it and use a blanket instead. But it's kind of nice to move into our closing meditation in a gentle back bend like this after all of the forward bending or folding that we did. So use your discernment. If you start too high and during the course of the meditation you need to lower down, just slide whatever prop you have under the sacrum out and release yourself to the earth. If you need to take any other little stretches or wiggles before you move into a final relaxation pose of your choice, then this is the time to do it. If you are still moving and wiggling, let those movements begin to end. If you're still very lifted in the sacrum, make a decision whether you want to stay there for the remainder of the closing meditation or if you want to drop the hips to the earth. If you tend to get chilly, this might be a nice moment to find a blanket to cover yourself up as you move into your final resting shape. Either closing your eyes or bringing the eyelids to half mast so that your awareness can move inward as you settle yourself in. Invite your body to find ease. Invite your breath to soften. Invite your entire being into the present moment. As you settle in, invite a representation, an image, an auditory representation of a canyon land. Beautiful, expansive sandstone canyons. And become curious about the landscape around you. Maybe taking in its visual features, the colors, the textures. Maybe smelling and feeling the air, noticing aromas. Noticing a gentle breeze, perhaps on your skin. making yourself at home in this beautiful canyon land. This beautiful landscape of red sandstone. Perhaps some trees, other plants. And invite yourself to explore, to walk along through this gorgeous landscape into a narrower canyon that's just up ahead. And as you reach this canyon, notice the wind is picking up. The wind is rushing through the canyons, rustling the leaves in the trees, kicking up sand, swirling dust all around you. The farther you walk into this canyon, the more wind, the more chaos, the more dust, the more leaves are swirling all around you. Little wind pockets here, little dust devils there. You hardly know where to look. There's motion, there's wind, there's activity all around you. It's almost overwhelming. So much to see, so much to smell, so much to feel. Wind in your face, the sound of air in your ears. And you notice a cave on the side, and just to escape the chaos for a moment, you decide to explore. And so you step into this cave. Very spacious opening. And as you step in, all of the chaos stops. There is no wind in this cave. It's perfectly still. There's no movement of air, no movement of dust, no leaves to swirl around you. In fact, you notice the air is a bit stagnant. Like no breeze ever comes into this space. You notice a sense of dullness in the air, a stickiness almost. There's no movement, just stillness. Just quiet, almost oppressive. You walk on to continue to explore where this might lead. And you notice a little side canyon that seems to lead to open air, and you decide to explore. You walk through this side canyon, and yes, indeed, you come out into another landscape. Fresh air greets you as you leave this cavern behind. You feel a breeze on your face. You notice a little dust devil just to your left. Your attention is drawn to it. And then you notice a bunch of leaves swirling around on your right. You shift your attention to watch the movement of the leaves bouncing around in the breeze. And as you walk on, you steadily move forward. Sometimes your attention is drawn to dust, to wind gusts. Sometimes it's drawn to leaves rustling or swirling. Yet you're making steady progress through this canyon. Little distractions to the right and left as you steadily move forward. And you arrive at another junction. There's a slot canyon to your right, and you decide to move in there. It's a beautiful canyon. The colors are vibrant. There's a gentle breeze to your back that helps move you along without pushing you. gentle flow of air that prods you along through this gorgeous slot canyon. You're fully alive, you're fully awake in this moment. You're feeling the breeze in your back. You feel the air on your face, on your skin. You're moving forward, walking gently, fully engaged with your environment, fully aware of the breeze, supporting your journey through this canyon. It's a beautiful sense that you're feeling in this moment. You're fully alive. You're at one with the breeze in your back, with the walls of the canyon to your side. As you reach the end of this canyon, the landscape opens up. There's a vibrancy of colors that meets you. A blue sky, vibrant air, alive, full of pleasant aromas, vibrant and yet still. You breathe the air, you smell the aromas. You feel the breeze stroking your skin gently, sweetly. You hear the most beautiful bird song, maybe even the vestiges of a gentle breeze. Your entire being opens up, your heart opens up. Your mind opens up. You feel completely refreshed, completely alive, and yet completely still, calm, present, lucid, luminous. And you decide in this moment to seal this feeling of luminosity, this feeling of vibrancy, this feeling of stillness and movement and stillness into your heart. And so even as the image fades, the sensation, the clarity stays with you. As we now all together move into a few moments of stillness. Gently invite your senses to move outward, becoming aware of little sounds or smells around you. Feeling your way back into your body, noticing where you make contact with the earth, and maybe inviting some intuitive movements as you wiggle yourself awake. Perhaps you invite a nice conscious breath in and out. And then taking all the time you need in the next 20 seconds or so, transition yourself to a seat. Maybe rolling to your right side, resting there for a moment or two. And then ultimately finding a comfortable seat. Settling yourself into the earth, rising up through the crown. As you find a hand position that feels appropriate for you in this moment, maybe palms resting on your thighs or in your lap, at your heart, or palms together at your heart as you bow your head to heart center. Breathing into the realization that you are a luminous being, that your very essence is peacefulness, that your very capability is to notice the stillness within movement and the movement within stillness. Recognizing the tools of yoga that can lead you on this inward path to this place of luminous presence, of peaceful awareness. As always, thank you so much for sharing this practice with me. It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.